Namaste, my friends, and welcome to Circle of Wisdom. My name is Christopher Witecki, and I'm here with another Christopher. This is kind of a weekly meeting of the Christophers. I'm Christopher of SoulGuard.tv, and this is Master Christopher OneFeather. Hello, Master OneFeather.
And how are you today, Christopher?
I'm actually feeling fantastic. I love Libra. It feels so good to me as a Taurus. The vibration feels good. The earth feels so good. The weather's been beautiful out here.
Well, and for me, Libra falls in my fifth house and my sixth house. And so early Libra is all fifth house energy, which is very upbeat.
Joyful.
And my Neptune and Jupiter are both in Libra in my natal chart. So Libra time is always very eventful for me.
Yes, Neptune and Jupiter in your fifth?
Actually, Neptune is in the fifth, Jupiter's in the sixth.
Huh. Oh, okay, interesting. So, that's like Santa Claus, both sides.
Yes, actually, and I have heard that Neptune and Jupiter, when they fall in the sign of Libra, is kind of a good or a bad thing, depending on whether or not you're up for the challenge. But it indicates that your life will be one that has a core of spiritual advancement, and it seems that that has been, in fact, the reality with my life.
Really? Spiritual advancement?
Mm-hmm. So you're going to resolve a lot of old karma, you're going to disengage from ignorance, and ultimately arrive at the doorstep of some greater event, some greater process. Some people call it God, some people call it love. Some people just don't call it at all. They just go there without being called or calling.
You know, you bring up a topic I want to bring up today anyways, which is just, you know, your generation. You are a baby boomer, which is also in astrology speak a Pluto in Leo person. And you have Neptune in Libra, which I believe is the vibration that brought us the Beatles.
And among other things. You know, well, I've been playing with the band The Who for the last few days, and Pete Townsend, a lot of his lyrics were based on epiphanies he was experiencing as a student or a chela under Meher Baba. And when Peter kind of crashed there and went back into the drug addiction, it was because Meher Baba had taken a 30-year vow of silence, and all of a sudden all of his followers were without his, you know, communication. So it's very interesting. But a lot of that generation, the Moody Blues, the Beatles, all of them were taking a very spiritual track with their music and with their thought and with their adventures on the planet.
Oh, I know. I actually well aware of all of it. In fact, you're listing my iPhone music, to be honest with you, because my parents are definitely Southern California grass smokers, and we heard all of that all the time growing up. So to some degree, like, if you want to calm me down, it's the Moody Blues.
Yeah, the Moody Blues were amazing, and you know, a lot of people don't recognize the depth of the other band that was kind of in that same venue, which was Yes.
Oh, yes, yes.
A lot of their music was very much into spirituality.
I think, well, actually, I mean, Pink Floyd, even Pink Floyd, I mean, maybe not spiritual, but extremely psychological in a helpful way, you know, exploring demons in a musical genius helpful way. So I think Neptune in Libra was profoundly affecting everything, and I actually miss it. I miss Neptune in Libra. I really do.
Well, I think vibration. I think that, well, it's, you know, once it gets out of these confrontational angles with some of the planets that have been challenging it, I think Neptune in Pisces is going to usher in a very, very huge cycle of global awakening. So I'm looking forward to what 2015 and beyond are going to be lining up for us.
Yeah, that's me too. I'm looking forward to the future because this moment doesn't feel great. But here's today's planets. I just thought I would screen share. So what's interesting about today is that this is a real turning point to me today. Today is ruled by the eighth degree. The eighth degree is ruled by Saturn. So there's a Saturn decision. I think the Saturn decision is going to break this square you see between, which was a grand square there for a while when the sun was in Cancer. But we're kind of breaking that square, really. And to me, it's really about redefining us on this other side here, the part of us that holds back from Libra all the time, and changing what holds us back from Libra. I certainly feel the sharpness of change coming. I feel a sharp corner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think interestingly we're discussing these things right now because the moon is approaching a conjunction with Pluto up there in Capricorn. We're in that first or second quarter phase as the moon moved into Capricorn. It gave us a second quarter. And Pluto, of course, is all about the masses, all about humanity, the collective, and the moon likes to dig a little deeper into the collective rumination. So, yeah, this is a time that we can actually almost be oracles for the collective consciousness.
It's I think with the moon crossing Pluto, what I always report on is that you always let go. You always let go of an emotion. You always let go of something. Pluto at the very last degree is the letting go. And the truth is like you letting go when Pluto tells you to let go, it always happens the exact same time. You're personally finally ready right when Pluto gets there. It's a slow-moving planet. I think that it's exciting times because of there's a lot of, I could definitely feel a lot of new birth. And I want to bring up the Sun in Libra and community today. You started talking about community last week. I wanted to continue on that in the sense of community. And one of the reasons I was interested with your particular Neptune is your generation really had no problem just creating instant communities.
That's very true. That's very, very true. I think part of it was, the interaction, because at the same time that we had Neptune meandering around in Libra, we had Pluto meandering around in Leo. So you had an interesting sextile there. And sextiles, I think, put a lot more juice into situations. Trines are nice, fuzzy, warm, somewhat ambiguous angles. But when you get into the tighter angles, the Neptunian, Plutonian interaction that was happening with my generation, and especially those of us, born between about 1945 and then 1950, a lot of that generation really felt that casual acceptance of the community of mankind. So they would generate community wherever they went just by the act of being, and that was where we came up with that terminology where people would say, "Where are you going?" "Well, I'm going to a be-in," where we just be, we just hang out.
Yeah, man. So let me ask you, what was it like in that time? Was it that people were just it seems like the generation was extremely approachable to one another.
Well, I think that number one, we were discovering all the illusions collectively. We were, we had been overdosed with the beginnings, the early awakenings of media.
Right. World War II propaganda had shaken heavy on your head.
Yeah, and then the brainwashing that American television introduced,
Yes.
Commercialism, buy this, buy that. Every once in a while I go back and revisit some of the old shows, and everybody's smoking a cigarette.
I know, isn't that funny? Like,
I smoke now, but I'm a social or what do they call it? Anyway, I'm a social malfit because I just pursue my own things. But I think that era, because we had been given so much misinformation, that we felt a strong sense of community just because it all of a sudden
it was against the
us.
big brother, right. Basically. It was us against them.
Right, exactly. And, going back to that musical theme, The Who, in a lot of their music, highlighted that, I think, more than any of the other bands. And I remember there was one anthem where, you know, the proclamation is, "We won't be fooled again." And I think that that was the theme that caused us to create the community that we had initiated in that era.
So once again, a common enemy creates a community.
Often that is the case. Very rarely is there a community built around a true adept or a true enlightened soul. I mean, we do have instances, as with the Buddha and the Christ and Meyer Baba and various enlightened souls. They did generate community wherever they went. But more often than not, I think, on this plane of existence, I think that community is generated by oppression, and people get pissed off and they just can't take it any longer, and so it causes them to work together instead of in a separatist way.
Very much true. In fact, makes me think of two things. One, what is going on now, and what went on in World War II. A lot of times, you know, the way Hitler rounded up the country enthusiasm at first was having Nazis go into Poland acting like they were attacking Germans. So they created fake terrorism on Germany and said Poland was terrorizing Germans at the German border. They even dumped a body off, and they went so far as to kill someone and leave the body there and everything. That horrible, to create this idea that Poland was against Germany, and that united Germany by creating a common enemy. Now I look at ISIS, this whole ISIS thing. It's like, and this whole, like, look at this, and now there's this common community created of NATO and Britain and from this common enemy. I kind of see in that regard. But your generation, though, to go back to the one-on-one personal of creating the community, there was a real sense of, was it that you were all psychic and just could trust each other, or were you all just naive as hell to walk up to each other in a park?
No, I think we intuitively knew who to hang out with and who to avoid. I think that even though there was community, I think that there were definitely segments of community, and you found, you know, each different subsection had its own vision, and one of the more obvious groups was the Grateful Dead. They were the leaders of one of the communities, and I knew people who followed the Dead for 15 years, who lived on the road in, you know, Volkswagen microbuses and made hemp bracelets to buy money and gas to stay on the road. So it was an interesting era because there was a lot of devotion to a cause or to a vision or to, you know, some kind of a alternative to what we had been saturated with in our youth.
Do you think you were, to some degree, too, like following your parents' World War II example? Because your parents had gotten called into World War II and all coming together, and the women went in the factories, and we all came against this enemy, and there was that vibration. So when it came to coming together, you guys kind of had that ice cube tray, you know, too.
Yeah, I suppose there's a certain amount of that, but I think that is an existing element in human history. I think that if you go back and look at the history of the planet, that's just the nature of the human experience. You know, I think that we always build on previous generations' visions of community and then try to enhance that, develop it, and ultimately refine it to a place where we imagine that we have achieved something vastly superior. Unfortunately, that doesn't always work out, but that seems to be the idea.
It seems, though, that you bring me to the point I'm interested in talking about, which is the present day. In the present day, we do have a common enemy. We have a few common enemies. The common enemy thing doesn't tend to work on the United States so much, in the sense that I felt a real connection to the United States. I guess when we were attacked, that on 9/11, my heart was really connected to the United States in that moment, to the people of the United States. But at large, I'm just curious if we're going to reorganize, and if so, how it is we do that. this young generation, the reason I was asking and probing those questions is the young generation, Pluto Capricorn generation, that's my son. I mean, that's not my son. My son's Pluto Sag, but the next one's Pluto Capricorn. Both generations are a little standoffish energetically. Like, this seems, and you can blame technology, but it just seems that we're very unapproachable to each other unless we're at Burning Man.
Oh, again, I think it's regional, and I think it depends on individual experience, because I have my little tribe of kids that a lot of the ones who are between 18 and 25 right now, I think are really quite exciting and quite interesting to observe, because it seems like they are following the pattern that I saw in my generation, in that there was a sense of us versus them.
I see.
And I think that now, because of the internet, they have access to information that we were only intuitively picking up on or guessing about or sharing because of travel. Usually in every group back in the 60s and 70s, one person had spent time in Europe, and another person had been in South America, another person had been in Asia, and within the community you had all these different people who were saying, oh, it's not really that way over there. I was there last year, and it's not as bad as the government tells us or as we're taught in school,
that
sort of thing. Oh. So yeah, we're seeing that process really amping up now, because my generation were the first to really travel globally as a passion. Prior to that, America had gone through a huge amount of transition. We had, we had the Civil War, then we had the isolationist period, then World War I we got dragged into, then the Depression era, the stock market collapsed in World War II. So we had a lot of turmoil, and the average person really didn't have that luxury of thinking about spending 3 weeks in Europe, even just going from one hostel to another, trying to just experience something. So my generation definitely had the luxury of an era that had arrived where we were able to go to foreign environments and find out for ourselves what those people were all about that we had been told about in school.
Right. And you all sat around the campfire and listened.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Well, and that's true. That's a valid point. The travel is a fascinating and valid point. I think in my son's generation, it's going to be even more incredible to travel, and I think that they are even more drop of a hat going to go places just by the nature of our travels has moved to. In fact, actually, one of the things I was going to, community-wise, I mean, for myself, I'm really feeling like, I don't know, the only reason I even got into entertainment was for the community. I've always been in it for the community, and it's funny, every time I try to create a community, people scatter. So now I have a new philosophy. I'm going to go join other people's communities. So I joined a healers community this week, and it feels so good just to connect to people who are of like vibration and whatnot. And one of the persons in the community pointed out to me that that travel is even cheaper than even before. Like international travel is very cheap, and so the young generation is kind of hopping around in a youth hostel sort of way already.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see more of that because, again, the internet, social media.
Right.
You have kids in this country who have developed very solid friendships with people in Russia, for example. Now, in my generation, the thought of actually going behind
a friend
the
in
Iron
Russia.
Curtain, right, to go and experience Russia was like, my God, that's just beyond belief.
Yeah, you would be in jail.
Yeah.
You would be in jail.
And that's now, with your son's generation, they not only have these close friendships all around the planet, but they have that possibility of being able to go and hang out there. So to actually physically meet, and I think that, there's a huge amount of potential for, again, the awakening of consciousness, the healing of planetary consciousness as a result of very simple things like that.
I think so. I mean, I've come to believe now after the experiences I've been going through in the last couple of weeks. I'm also going back into my Buddhist community. I'm trying to get back into connecting locally and trusting law of attraction to do it right, and it is happening. But I realized, and this is what someone at the situation was saying, that's like, the truth is that we have two arms, and we can connect to, we can connect ourselves to two people that we feel is in the know or whatever, and that the Lightwork community really is about that web of connections at the end of the day, and where are your current connections, and where are you really getting in front of people? That's the other thing too, is I've been on the internet now for a long time, and it's been great. In fact, I just met Iwana, who was out here from Germany, and her and I met on the internet. So I've met a few people all the way from across the world have come by and said hi. By the way, if anyone's ever in LA, look me up. I go out all the time for that. And I think that's all internet generated. So it's exciting to see that there is actually connections. I think the internet is partly what's driving it together. Another interesting thing too that makes my son feel fearless is the internet, in the sense that he will Google Maps a place in Brazil and look around the streets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is one of the amazing things about Google Earth, is that you can look in somebody's backyard.
Yeah, I've seen my old cars. I'm like, hey, I sold that car. That's an old picture.
Yeah, exactly. But it is astonishing what we're doing, but I think that it's also the necessary next step for the sake of the collective coming back together again. And within that idea of community, the broader vision of community, I also think that this is a period where we really have to start to look at dependence and interdependence, because in the human experience, we like to imagine ourselves to being completely independent. Here I am in my little body, I'm a warrior, I'm going to crash through the gates, I'm going to, find the beautiful babe and settle down and build my fiefdom and all this nonsense. And the reality is, in the human experience, we have created a dynamic here as spiritual beings who wanted to experience that idea of separation, that we have created the illusion of separation. But in reality, we have become even more dependent. Like right now, if you look at the nature of your life, you are dependent on air, you are dependent on water, you are dependent on food.
Looks like I lost Master OneFeather.
And what's it that?
Go ahead. I lost you for a second. Go ahead. Depending on air, food, and water is the last thing I heard, sir.
Right, and and the reality is that by seeking separation or independence from the collective, what we have done is we have made ourselves more dependent in reality, but we just fail to acknowledge that, or we resist looking at that. But we're very much dependent on our food, our water, our medicine, our healing herbs, our massage, our this, our that, and in truth, all we have to do is step back out of that and really fully integrate into our spiritual identity, even if it's just briefly for 5 seconds a day or 5 seconds a week, to get a new sense of how we really are invulnerable and how we really are masters of our own fate, and how we have deluded ourselves into believing that all these exterior forces can in fact control us. So it's very interesting that the community is going to, I think, the next phase of community right now is to look at that idea of dependence and how we need to develop a different way of generating dependence so that we're depending on the force within us.
I completely concur.
Yeah,
in fact, I was having this conversation, I'm not too sure with whom or when, I can't remember, so forgive me if I'm not throwing it out correctly, but it had to do with the fact that, in the old days, when I say old days, I mean in the villages, okay, let me back up here. Looking at astrological charts, I mean, I've looked at thousands, and you see a trend. One trend that is absolutely common is that the entire population is growing up emotionally, that we're all learning how to deal with our emotions. And I was thinking about it because, you know, in the tribal time, the village took care of each other so much. And I don't know if human beings autonomously learn how to deal with their own emotions, autonomously alone in the woods. I mean, you were never alone in the woods very long out there in the wilderness. You always had the tribe, and if you hurt, you know, there was always an elder, there was always someone wise, there was always a witch doctor, there was always within just a few barefoot, you know, steps away. And I think that as we moved into our house, we moved into isolation, and we moved into me, especially with the American capitalistic drive to sell products, which leads to isolation. I think we were, in a weird spiritual way, forced to now suddenly alone with ourselves, you know, and we've had to deal with our own emotions, and it really is. That's my experience the last week or so, reaching out to new communities because I'm getting lonely in my own little apartment here. Realizing that, you know, at the end of the day, all the answers really that everyone is ever looking for are through the eyes of someone else, anyways. So through our community is really where our resources are. But the flip side of that is that I think we're now starting to come into emotional maturing on our own. It seems like we went through that one on our own.
Yeah, and I think part of that was, you know, if we really, interesting, I was thinking about this earlier today. If you go back and you look at today, it's October is 10, and today is the first day of October, and so you got 10:01. And you look at history, and the era of 10:01 was probably the real shift into that linear society, starting to really evolve in both separate regions. You had the European Christian fiefdoms, and you had Islam, which was at that time was in its greatest flowering period. I mean, it really had grown to astonishingly high culture, and you know, in another 10 years, there was the Great Clash. The Crusades started. So today, in some ways, is kind of a day that has that vibration of you know, that advance back then toward that linear clash, the two forces confronting each other. And we see kind of a parallel going on in the outer world right now, but a lot of us are recognizing that's what needs to cause us to get back to our tribal identities and our tribal sense of, you know, having a gracious life built on sharing and loving rather than a confrontation of dominance and getting the final word in, the final blow in.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned Neptune. My Neptune's in Sagittarius, and so for me, connecting to people is the greatest fun there is on the planet. Like, and I'm looking forward to. I think Mars in Sag. I mean, I think I'm feeling it. Mars is in my 5th house right now in Sag, so I'm just like, woo, ready to play. But I also know that Saturn's heading for Sagittarius on Christmas Eve, so I'm super excited about that phase too. And I think what's going to happen in Saturn and Sag is I think you know, people are yearning. I mean, as I look at people's eyes, I think people are yearning to be around common, to connect. I think it's happening, and part of it is just perhaps the return of Saturn into Sagittarius. It's been 30 long years. I don't know if I can hear you. Are you there?
Well, yeah,
I just left you speechless. Sorry.
Well, there were about 5 words that I missed there. So.
Oh, gotcha. All you heard was like, "Bob, we'll go off."
Yes, I hate it, even when you do that jokingly, because I'm still going, what's he saying?
There's internet technology for you. Yeah. Well, you and I've never met. People, you know, I feel like we have.
Right. Well, I would say a third of my closest friends are people that I've never actually met in the physical condition, you know, the physical state. But I see that perhaps over the coming years starting to change, because I do see myself doing a little bit more traveling, getting out, moving around, meandering more. But at the same time, I think, like you had said, as Saturn continues to advance into Sagittarius, it is going to really I think bring up a lot of hidden awareness. I think Saturn, you know, I also am teaching that the Saturn passage is all about the teacher. So wherever Saturn is in your chart, that's where your learning and your teaching is most concentrated. And as Saturn hits that region of the wheel that is the most wanderlust and the most inquisitive part of the 12 signs, I think that a lot of people are going to start going on their own personal quests. I think they're going to be looking for a deeper level of awareness and insight. So yeah, I think this is going to be 2.5 to 3 years of very intense questing on behalf of a lot of people.
And you know what's so interesting is Star Wars, the next chapter is coming out with Saturn and Sag, which to me, honestly, Star Wars is why I'm in Hollywood, because I saw George Lucas put ideas of energy. You know, now we talk about Reiki healing, and it's like we really believe it. When a human being says that they're sending you energy, you're like, oh, cool, thanks. But I think a lot of that was due to the Force. And so I just think it's interesting that the next chapter of the Star Wars, which kind of is the only church of my generation, is coming out with a new chapter here with Saturn and Sagittarius. So that's super exciting. One of the other things I was thinking about, too, I don't know if you ever heard this theory, but the theory that we are of a binary system, our sun and Sirius. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, I've heard that. There's a lot of conjecture. I mean, a lot of phenomenon that is occurring on such a grand scale that we'll probably never have any kind of recognition or validation as to whether it is real or not, simply because it's hard for us to get the perspective. You know, we're at such a tiny point in relationship to the galaxy and to other galaxies and to this marvelous process unfolding within the multiple universes that we're so overwhelmed by stuff that's actually happening that we're oblivious to, that I wonder if the collective will at some point arrive at a collective epiphany, a realization as to all the possibilities that we are experiencing.
It'll be a long time before it's the collective. And this comes from the same place that tells me about Atlantis inside of me. So it's like, it's pure, whatever you think around the fire. At the end of the day, whatever it is, it's what your heart rings true to. But I do believe we're part of a binary system. I think it makes greater sense. And I think it's based on the way Creator tends to work is in twos. But the idea of Sirius being our twin flame is that we're coming to an era where we turn back toward one another, the two planets, the two vibrations, and Sirius being a blue star and our star being a red star, and really that energetic violet opening up. And to me, I feel like in that sense, you know, with the sun in Libra, you know, our sun is seeking its partner, and I think we're all seeking to communion again. And I think you're right. Like, I think that when I think of Saturn and Sagittarius, I think of Indiana Jones kind of energy, very golden, adventuristic. Find the treasure, find the mist. One of the things I was thinking about bringing up with you, and I don't know in all of your in your radio shows that you did, what you picked up on Atlantis and this idea that there's a hidden chamber under the Sphinx's foot. You ever looked into that fable?
Yeah, actually, who was it? I did talk to a fellow who's an Englishman who has spent the last 20 years in Egypt. And he's down in Luxor, and is quite an authority on a multitude of things. And he told me that there was actually a chamber there. There was a lot of debate about whether or not it was in fact a cistern. It was a area where they collected water, and that was a service area for the people who are working on the pyramid. So I don't know how true that is or not. But
well, the captivating extra vote is Edgar Casey's prediction, who predicted that chamber. I think a lot of people, they might have even looked for the chamber based on Edgar Casey's prediction.
Oh yeah, there definitely were 2 or 3 different crusades looking in that direction, and you know, one of the problems is the authorities there are very, very concerned about finding any kind of evidence that could actually become controversial as far as the Muslim community is concerned. So there is a certain amount of suppression going on. You know, they don't want to find artifacts or things that you would consider being part of the intelligentsia if it's going to create controversy about the religious beliefs and the implementation of Islam in Egypt. So, you know, if you come along and you say, oh, yeah, it's obvious that 4,000 years ago these people had a much more highly insightful vision of God and spirituality, and their whole journey through life was much more in alignment with what God wished for us, then, you know, you can imagine how many imams would be infuriated about that kind of.
Oh, well, the entire evil world order doesn't want that.
Right, exactly.
I know, I totally know that. Okay, so one thing I want to say to people who watch our show is, like, pray that the truth comes out. Because, you know, prayer actually works, folks. 51% of the population prays, even if the most evil doer tries to hold down it, something happens. But I think, you know, I pray for some sort of revelation like that lets the human race see that. And we're starting to see it. Like, if you look at some of the documentaries and stuff on History Channel, what I call the Hitler Channel, and what they're finding, you know, the evidence is growing that we were once maybe more intelligent than we are now. Once maybe more organized. Once maybe more aware. Certainly, seems like we're still in a dark age in the sense that most of us live in a very segregated little tiny view. And it appears that it's much bigger than we've seen, than we think. You know, it's almost like I feel like there's something's going to get pulled off of our head here any second now.
Yeah, I think that again, it's like layers. I think that you and I, Christopher, and the communities that we have around us and that we are participating in, are the ones who have lost their fear of realization. But I also am very much aware of vast communities out there that are still existent. And, you know, the fundamentalist Christian groups, the fundamentalist Islamic groups, the basic fundamentalist Hindu, whatever, they all are still entrenched so firmly in their beliefs that if you give them a set of circumstances with exact evidence that proves 100% beyond doubt that some tiny portion of their belief system is askew, they simply they go offline. Their mind stops working. Yeah, and
right.
And so you're never going to convince them. It is a thing of their journey has to get them to the point where they arrive at that awakening on their own. So as much praying as we may do, I think it will have, a positive effect, yes. But I think also that if you're looking around for evidence of that effect, you're probably going to be hard-pressed to find it.
Well, okay, so that brings me to the final topic is, I feel, I don't know, that we're just going to have to go create a new place to live where cool people are.
Well, I think we also have to live as previous generations throughout history have lived. And that's with a very high level of trust. You know, I think trust is going to be the key element in everything that all of us are doing.
Trusting each other?
Trusting that everything that we're doing, everything we believe in, every moment of our existence has meaning and has guidance and is what we imagine it to be, or even better than what we imagine it to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree. That's a spiritual inward journey.
Yeah.
But I feel like for community-wise, we're just going to have to, I just want to hang out with cool people. So I think we're going to have to find each other. No matter what the world is fighting or caught in, is my point. I'm not waiting.
and that's the whole point, again, is to not get caught up in the illusion that's going on around us. I mean, all the strife and conflict and everything else, that's... As the prophet in the Bible had said, you know, there will be wars and rumors of wars. That's been history. That is the history of humanity. But there's also been these astonishingly beautiful passages that individuals and communities have created that give us that realization that ultimately we are moving towards something that is uncommunicable in its magnificence and its perfection and its beauty and its joy.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, for one, I look at the people trying to get to Mars to colonize. I look at that and see that people are wanting to go off and create community. Then I watch a lot. I do a lot of history studying, and there is, in Asia there was a dynasty. I don't know the name off the top of my head, but this dynasty lasted like 500 or 600 years. It was a long time, longer than the United States has been around.
Right.
And they were it was total peace. There was no war. Women were diplomats between the villages, which was fascinating to me. So there was a time when women of China were all the diplomats, and during that time it was all peaceful. But the point to me is like, but that died, that ended, like it didn't proliferate through the world at all. But it shows me that, like, it's like the lotus flower. You can have this total swampy, war, shitty environment, and out of that can grow the most beautiful little expression of humankind over here or over there. And I think you have to, I guess, find it while everyone's going through their shit.
Well, yeah. I think that, and more importantly, though, I think we were talking about this to some degree last week. I think we have to also realize that, Jesus didn't show up in that kind of an ideal situation. Jesus didn't show up surrounded by a bunch of enlightened people. And Buddha didn't show up in those environments. And none of the great teachers and avatars and prophets that lent them their existence, lent their lives to us as an example, stepped into an environment where everything was perfect and they were just like a continuation of this perfection. And I think really we do have to recognize that we are the light of the world. And no matter where you are, that light can come forth from within you.
Yep.
And perhaps that is the point of your being where you are right at this precise moment.
Sure.
Is because you are that light, and your light has to confront darkness. I'm not saying you have to overwhelm darkness or do anything, proactive. Just be who you are and carry that light within you into your day-to-day existence. And I think that process, if you're consciously doing it, you will notice subtle changes going on within the environment. And you'll notice that there is more light being reflected back to you.
I agree. I completely agree. I mean, at the end of the day, our job is to carry the light. And I have to say, having been around a lot of genuine evil in my life, I'll tell you one thing I found with evil people. They don't have God in their heart, and you go, well, yeah, obviously don't have God in your heart. But what you don't realize is they don't have the confidence of God in their heart. They're not really confident, evil people, I've noticed.
Well, number one, they are very, very, very much wounded. And that's why they, rather than our attacking them, that's why they deserve our forgiveness and our love and our tolerance, is because, I'm not saying that we can't confine them or give them perimeters or exercise a certain amount of, discernment in how we accommodate them in our worlds. But really the way that you arrive at that deeper level of evil, as you speak of it, or depravity or whatever, is because they have been so severely wounded themselves.
Yeah.
And they can't crawl out of that.
Yeah, so, I understand that. I think my mistake was trying to help them when they didn't ask.
Well, and more importantly, your idea of helping them may not be what the universe's idea of helping them is. So, again, you have to step back from our
You think
ego.
I'm a Bible thumper? I was putting the Bible in their face, telling them they need to accept the Lord Jesus Christ? Is that what you're calling me?
No, yeah, I'm just saying that, sometimes showing up with a joint and some herbal relief medicine isn't going to do the job either. A lot of times these people have to act out repeatedly in order to be able to release their pain through action. And so, we just have to put them in a wall with padding so that they don't hurt themselves or anybody else during the process.
Protection, that's exactly it. Well, and that's my thing. I think I've learned to protect myself now. I don't know. I was just trying to give love, Master OneFeather.
Well, yeah, and The other thing that's so bizarre is that we all have so many multiple lives that we're living at the same time that overlap and cross over. And so I could probably ask 25 people that have known you over the last 25 years who you are, and I would get 25 different stories.
Absolutely. It's all people's perception, yeah.
Right. So, and
it
it's
is
all,
which is why yeah, I think I just want to go. That's why I'm just thinking that for those who want to chill out and eat fruit and talk about God all day, we'll go meet somewhere on Earth. Let's pick it out. That's what I want to do. I want to be, I guess,
a lot of possibilities in Hawaii on that one. You know, you can become a poi pounder and a pineapple plucker.
Well, Hawaii is a place that I certainly love and would go to and spend time there, and I know a lot of people are flocking there. In fact, as far as where people are meeting up, from my observation of reading people, I mean, when I say reading people, I mean the readings I do for a living, people are flocking to Denver, Oregon, Central California, Texas, Hawaii, and then, of course, outside the United States, there's a few destinations, too. They're getting kind of hot right out here. But those are the general areas that people seem to be going to right now for some reason.
Yeah, it is fascinating. I think I'll probably end up becoming a lot more nomadic over the next few years. I see myself traveling 4 or 5 months out of the year because I don't really feel like there is a place that I belong. I think that, you know, I've got my family here. This is my anchor, but I'm feeling very much the need to just go on little journeys.
Me too. I think that's Saturn and Sag, though.
Yeah,
I have the same exact feeling. I just kind of want to get the passport and travel for a bit. But the internet's cool because I'm arriving meeting people I've wanted to meet. That's one of the cool things of the internet. You know, to underscore another thing is there's so many people that I've connected with over camera, and I just met some more people that first started watching me as viewers, and now we're friends. So the people excite me.
Yeah, I think that really ultimately that's the only thing of value is the capacity we have to meet, to you know, share bread, to break bread together, and to listen to good music together, and to experience the union based on love and acceptance and tolerance.
Totally true. Well, this is a good wrapping point, Master OneFeather. It's been a nice conversation with you about community and unity and love.
Absolutely, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'll be interested in watching where you're broadcasting from next week, so who knows?
Oh yeah, I'm getting ready. I have to set up some more things before I have the freedom to travel, but it'll be exciting. We'll have to join up. It'll be neat to be joining up with people around the world. And if people don't know, Master OneFeather has his own YouTube channel, and he does a weekly show or so on visions, dreams, and insights, and that's at YouTube.com/OneFeather. Feather. And you can catch me 6 days a week with my little spiritual pep talk every day called Namaste Today, and that's available at soulgarden.tv or YouTube.com/soulgarden.tv. So thank you, Master OneFeather. I'll see you in 7 days. We'll do it again, eh?
Absolutely. We're going to be having more fun than humans are, you know, allowed to have in this material universe.
Caught on camera. And by the way, if people would like to join the conversation, I should have said at the beginning of the show, but if you always come to tweettalk.tv, there is a chat room that opens up on the right side of the screen, and I always post a link to join. So if you're on Google Plus and whatnot, you can join the conversation with us. We'll see you next week, folks. Have a great week. Live, love, be.
Take care. Bye.